good afternoon. Welcome. You are watching the Policy Times Unleashing India Global Web Summit series post COVID-19 devastation. And today we are going to talk on one of the most important topic again, which we have been discussing since couple of months, the enhanced role for Indian and global financial enterprises for national reincarnation. This show is chaired by Dr. P. Shekhar, who is chairman of Global Smart Cities panel, one of the most renowned thinker of modern times in terms of nation building and national growth. He wrote more than 80 books on different national development and national growth issues, including blue economy, sustainable development, and all. Also, an architect of the concept called secure governance. With him, we have two very eminent and real expert from whom we will hear the most important mantra of the national reincarnation. Before that, let me just give a quick break and a quick brief about what we are going to discuss today and what we need to discuss in the context of nation building and national reincarnation from my point of view, my small knowledge. First, finance is the nucleus of human economic development in the modern society. No family, no individual, no nation, no society can function without finance. Though finance might not be the ultimate aim of human civilization, but it is extremely part and parcel for human survival. Now, when we talk about finance, finance can also be a wisdom or or a blessings to survive. It can also be a tool of exploitation. Now, how nations, that's why national policy makes a huge difference. That how nation makes policy for making finance accessible for all at all stakeholder level. At the same time, how we also stop the kind of exploitation. Now, for a nation, in terms of national reincarnation and nation building, I would be extremely happy from our experts today to know that the first thing at the crisis that we are going through, the global pandemic that we have, there are a couple of strategic areas we need massive amount of access to finance at low cost access to finance, in fact, to be more and sustainable access to finance, not just once or twice. Number one, I believe we need massive finance to boost the MSME sector. MSME is suffering a huge blow from this startup and MSME ecosystem that we have in the country. How can we have sustainable finance, access to finance to, and low cost finance to this sector? The second is large scale industrialization. We also need massive large scale industrialization. How do we get that? The third, I think, is most important, I believe, is sustainable inclusive development. How do we finance or bring financial opportunities for sustainable and inclusive development? For example, women entrepreneurship. There are a couple of 2 to 5 million women entrepreneurs that are there in the country. How do we get on financing opportunities for them? Another important sector, I think, is agriculture. So we need also finance in the agriculture. There are other solutions in the agriculture that we have. So we have limited access to finance. I'm not going into the details, but I think these are strategic areas. If we can have some, enlightenment from our experts, I'll be very happy to know. With this, I want to hand over to Dr. Shekhar also to take over the session and give a direction to the discussion.
Thank you, Akram. We are now at the one of the most important topics, that is enhanced role for Indian and global financial enterprises for national reincarnation. Okay. Now, what do we exactly mean by some of these statements? Indian and global financial. When human being became whatever it is, there was a barter system. Okay, that I give something, you take something. That's the way things were opening. Then we started printing whatever we call as our money system, rupees for us, dollars for somebody. And then it became a much bigger dimension. That is where it is called a financial market. And when we go into the depth of it, it is highly complex. It is nowhere as simple as I give some money to you and buy something. And because of that, the whole economy, the whole way we call as a growth, progress, or prosperity is coming from the financial markets. So with that small, one-line introduction, there are experts sitting. I will come to the, again, I'm going to take only 2-3 minutes, come to the crux of the whole dimension. Now, India, as we know, because we need to know the numbers in India, because even now this pandemic, which has really brought down, ruined the economy, is not even 1%, but that has somehow taken the whole imagination out of gear, and it has really brought the whole thing down. Yes, it is a problem, but problem in a dimension which need not have brought down the economy. But along the economy, it is people's personal lives are spoiled, the country is in doldrums, the world is in doldrums, and everything has to be, reinvented. That's why we are calling it the national reincarnation. As India, of course, we should know one very strange number that we are 206 countries put together. We got 1.4 billion people, second largest in the world. We got, if you see roads, we are second largest, 5.4 million kilometers of road. We got 1,300 islands, and we have got almost area above the sea as much as area on the land. And so, now let us spend half a minute on the COVID cases, because COVID is the one which is brought down. So when I'm saying that, we are something which is happening in the whole world, it is 31 million, and almost 1 million have died. And every day 10 million people died. This 1 million people have died spread over almost 7 months. So we should know that the numbers are just not telling. Even today, a number says 590 people died. Big headline. But nobody says that on any normal day, 27,000 Indians die, 75,000 Indians are born. Okay. So out of 27,000 Indians, 590 people dying is something which one has to say, how did others die of and what is it happening? But the fear is created. There is something very bad happening. Death itself is bad. So in whatever way people die. But it need not be made into a fearful factor. That is what would somewhere, when things are being taken back, it has to come. Now, since the main topic is financial system, what is the global financial system? I'm not going to define everything. I'm just saying that it is defined in a very scientific way. Okay, it is defined in a very comprehensive way, so that the systems are there in inter-country, intra-country, and in a complex combination of both, as you see from the experts lying with us today. The Indian banking system has got its own banks, still the regional rural banks, right from Reserve Bank of India. And it is all highly very systematically set up. And these institutions are non-banking, banking, mutual fund, insurance, so many things, public sector, private sector, and cooperative sector. So all things put together are the ways in which these are all properly partitioned, so that every part of the economy can benefit from here. And even today, some of the facts given by Reserve Bank indicate that almost 180 bank accounts are opened every minute. One of the largest market microfinance is in India. And India, even otherwise, is going to be one of the biggest. Today, we are not the biggest. We are nowhere near biggest. Even our biggest bank, whose ex-MD is with us, is relatively small compared in a global sphere today. But we are all galloping. In another 10 years' time, in the same thing is held, we would be in the top 5. But today, we are nowhere near the top, because our financial systems is getting developed, and we are also getting more mature from a global point of view, which also would be highlighted by our speakers today. Now, there is mobile banking, blockchain, so many instruments are created, sub-instruments are created, cloud computing, cloud banking, everything is coming online. And I'm sure, some of these points our speakers may touch upon, not all, because there is part of time, and this is for seeing how national reincarnation will take place. And COVID has again impacted like anything from every aspect. Even a bank is today, previously if somebody wears a mask and goes into there's a big joke, in a bank, that means a robber. Today, the bankman does not wear this thing, then there's something wrong with the bank. Nobody will go to the bank. So, which is very unique, Today, bank will expect everybody to wear a mask and come to the bank. Previously, the moment somebody comes to the mask means first the police will be called. So bankers have to change or have changed like anything for depending on the system, depending on the need, depending on the thing. In this government of India is doing its own job, having various schemes. I'm quickly coming to a half minute to be spent on secured governance. Secured governance is for self-sustained, seamless development and growth. Here, I'm in touch with all the banks to see if the banks itself can create zones by which there'll be nothing as a loss to the bank, because the valuation of the zone will take care of all the losses which are created in the operation. So this is something which will make it a more self-sustained, more unique system. Even otherwise, there are other systems which are being followed for secure governance in terms of smart city, in terms of funding smart cities, in terms of funding blue economy, in terms of funding various developmental portion. And this is from the Indian bank system and the global. Today, India is even one of our own speakers in the last month, he had promised unlimited funds to India for India's development. So like that many foreign, because India is the best place today to park any big funding agency from Europe, pension funds and so on and so forth. And so banking system has to take care of all those. Now with that, let me introduce first our today's speaker, Mr. VG Kannan. VG Kannan is almost in the banking line, is in the banking line for almost 4 decades, and has been the MD of India's largest bank, State Bank of India. He has been a very successful person in his own field. He is not like a typical banker. He is a very practical banker. He's somebody who would take a project, analyze, understand, and ensure that it succeeds. If it doesn't succeed, also he will try to help and see that on the whole, the bank does not suffer and the client does not suffer, which is unique of a banker. Only seeing the rule book and trying to reject is not something which people like him, many are like him, and people like him, he's one of the leaders in that particular this thing, and brought an extremely good name to his own bank, to India. And because of that, he's also on many of the RBI committees. He's chairing some of those committees and bringing very good value to the people and to our system. So I would request Mr. VG Kannan to give his analysis and see how nation reincarnation can take place with the banking system's active participation. Without bank, there cannot be any reincarnation. Mr. Kannan.
Thank you, Dr. Shekhar. Thank you, Mr. Akram, and the other persons on the panel. It's been a pleasure responding to Mr. Shekhar. Dr. Shekhar is a very persistent person. I was just trying to postpone this discussion for some time, but he kept on at me. I also had some personal problems because of which I could not really accept this invitation. Uh, Dr. Shekhar, you also mentioned that banking has to play a major role, but I think you need to also understand that bank is a catalyst. Catalyst means it can only trigger something faster when something is already available. It cannot necessarily trigger anything ab initio. So, for example, a lot of people say reduce the loan interest rate of loans, and then there'll be in good demand. Reduce the interest rates of loans, then there'll be a new industry coming up. No, I think that is something which we have to understand. We need to have enablers which will ensure that the people come and say, I want a loan. If you remember, in the 90s, beginning 90s, the interest rates are even as high as 18%, 19%. But there are still takers. Why? Because there is a feeling there is a growth, etc. Going forward till around the middle of this decade, there's been a consistent demand. But now what's happening is there's a lot of issues which are coming up. India is a fantastic destination on many counts. I think you have listed some of them. I just like to add some more. Huge population, of course, goes without saying. 138 crores is a fantastic place for anything to be sold under the earth. Huge demand from all kinds of strata of society, be it the society of the upper rich, the middle class, or the lower class, and the small laborers. Huge requirement for everything. Even today, there's a lot of saying now housing is slowing down. But believe me, there are n number of people, or thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are without a house or without a decent shelter over the head. Housing, next, healthcare. And that we have seen it this time during this particular pandemic. where the entire healthcare was under tremendous strain. This is not a tremendous strain in India itself, but it is a tremendous strain everywhere. And look at the kind of population, the per capita. Dr. Shekhar has been telling about the huge increases that we have done fantastically. But when you look at per capita, I think we have done miserably. We'll have to accept it. And we cannot say blame it on the population, because that's how we have been living. But we need to ensure that we improve on this per capita in everything. There's a huge demand for schools, education. See, in fact, I say higher education, healthcare, hospitals are all very important. And this is something which we need to tackle. And once the basic healthcare, education is taken care, automatically many things else will come up. Unemployment, the education base, the number of colleges. When I studied, and Dr. Shankar also will endorse, when we studied, the entire, I belong to a place called Tamil Nadu. We had only 5 engineering colleges. Today, there are 500 engineering colleges. Imagine the number of people being churned out. See, the more and more people are churning out, unless you are in a position to give them decent jobs or decent aspirations or decent ways of earning a livelihood, the very fact that many of them have taken loans to repair, to get them educated, which is very well made available by the banks, thanks to the intervention of the government. Now you have a surfeit of unemployed youth, which might cause discomfort, but these are all fantastic brains. Today, Indian brains is one of the best. The very fact that top people in US industry are all built up by Indians. In fact, we might even have a semi-Indian becoming the vice president of US. And for all you know, another person with an Indian background could become the Prime Minister of England shortly. So the way things are, I think there's a lot of people who are looking at the Indian brains. Therefore, India has got fantastic facilities, everything. It's got high quality physical facilities. You've got minerals, you've got a long shoreline, one of the best peninsulas, which shoreline all over the place. We've got a very decent monsoon which keeps coming. We've got places with a lot of sunlight to capture solar energy. All these things are available. Now, what is it which we are lacking? I just want to bring in a big picture before I go into the international finance. What we are lacking, and which is the foremost, is legal system. We have got a good legal system, but a very slow legal system. So people may say, what you call justice delayed is better than just no justice. But I think if justice is delayed, it's as good as no justice at all. Because if a person is going to be deprived of justice within a decent period, 1 year or 2 years, and is going to be given a judgment 25 years later, it doesn't make sense. I remember recently, a couple of years ago, 92 scam. I think many of you may know the 92 scam. Two of the persons accused who lost their jobs, they were found not guilty in 2017, exactly 25 years later. Imagine what has happened, the trauma you have created. I think people need to be sure as to what is there, what is not there, what is possible, what is not possible. We cannot go on indefinitely delayed, and this is one of the biggest things. The only people who are making money is the courts and the judiciary and the legal lawyers, and not the people. People are actually losing. There have been many cases where the banks have said, I don't want to fight a case, let us do an OTS. Not because they're not in a position to recover, because they feel there's a delay which can happen of the extension. There's a whole thing, we are people, what you call tariq pe tariq, which is a very famous statement. That is something, and we need to address this quickly. But second is clearances. We have been tom-tomming for the last 15 years saying that we'll have single window clearances, 1 point clearances, quick clearances. But I think we have still a long way to go. I think that is something which we need to take up. Wherever clearances are there, it should be full and final. If a document has been signed by the government, it has to be its sanctity has to be maintained. We cannot simply say no, it was done under different circumstances, different government. I think we need to get away from this. I'm sure whoever it is there, 5, 10 people who have put their heads together and have taken a decision. Imagine the lot of steps which have been taken on the basis of that particular decision. Good, or if it's a bad decision or if it's been done malified, haul them up, but you don't stop the project, because by stopping the project, you have wasted so much of money and what you call time and money on this particular thing, which is not going to be recovered. You can't simply stop it and say, no, it is not done properly. But then you might as well penalize them, go ahead and finish it. Let us improve the, what you call, completion of the project. That will attract a lot of people, because today, a project which is supposed to take 3 years gets done in 7 years. So 4 years of additional funding, who's going to bear the cost? It's, the investor is not going to bear the cost in case he finds, and he simply says, look here, I had decided to give 1,000 crores. I don't mind paying another 10%, but if you're going to say 1,000 crores, I pay another 500 crores because there's a cost overrun, there's a time overrun, there's an interest overrun. I think if you have noticed the number of industries which have failed, most of them have become mainly because of overruns. I'm not saying that there have been no malafide. I'm not saying there has been no other reasons. But by and large, all those reasons have manifested and become delays in completion of the project. That is the second thing. Priorities keep changing. Today we have these priorities, and you cannot change the priorities within a couple of years. You need to have a long-term plan, 5 years, 10 years. How many roads? Which roads? Dr. Shekhar rightly said, I'll tell you, last 25 years, we had one of the best roads we have done. But is this enough? And having done the roads, has it been maintained? You don't feel like going on the road, because once the road has been done, 10 years, no one bothers about it. Bombay-Pune Expressway is supposed to be one of the best. Believe me, if you travel during the monsoon or immediately after the post monsoon, it's as good as any other road on the municipalities of many of the towns. I think we need to rectify that and say, if you have a good quality road has its own benefits. It has speed. It also ensures consumption of fuel will become optimal. And imagine the consumption coming down, there your imports come down. You'll have a whole cycle of things which has to be done. Wrong priorities. We instead of going for education, instead of hotels, we start going for other celebrations, etc. I think we need to focus on this. One area which India has got fantastic opportunities, and I think they are missing the bus by a mile, is tourism. The number of places, whenever I go abroad, they took me to some small shop, some small place where there are about some 15 stones, and say Stonehenge, and they give a big history of 50 years. I think we have got more than 500 years of history. We are not capitalized on this. The Ajanta, the Elloras, there's so many things. We don't have a decent hotels. We don't have decent restrooms. Simplest thing is construct decent restrooms, give it an outsourcing for maintenance. Imagine the amount of money people will pour in, because that will be tourism, that will be jobs for the people who are there, there will be small shops which will come up, the hotels will come up. It will sort of invigorate the economy everywhere. On the roads, we do find in some of the roads you have this small townships come up, but the smart cities which is proposed, if they come up, I'm in one of the cities which is identified as a smart city. I see a lot of changes and a lot of things happening, but we need to ensure that it is continuous. Tax laws is something which keeps on, and Dr. Shekhar might start wondering, why am I going into government areas? But I think we need to, our environment has to be created everywhere. The focus has to be that tax laws has to be made simple, straightforward, clean. You cannot have a person to appoint a tax expert to file the returns or understand what are the implications. We have had also some retrospective taxing. GST is a fantastic system, and I think it's one of the best which captures. But believe me, there are a good number of people, especially in the say 1 crore, 2 crores, 1.5 crores, or 75 lakh turnover people, who are scared because they need to appoint a separate chartered accountant to even enter it. It is a very difficult. It has to be made simple. It has to be humanly possible for anyone to finish it within 5-10 minutes. It is possible by the chartered accountants. They are doing a good job. But believe me, it is not very easy for a layman to understand this. So I have mentioned about tourism. What are the opportunities? Now let me come back to the situation regarding the funding, which is what I think we are thinking how the investors do this. The bankers, I think the domestic bankers, you have to actually give hats off to them. But for them, you would not have seen the Mumbai airport. You would not have seen the Gurgaon to Noida to Agra highways. You would not have seen many of the highways which have been all over the country. You would not have seen many of the airports like in Hyderabad, Bangalore, etc. I think you have to give kudos to them. You would not have seen the kind of power companies which have come. Of course, many of them have gone bad due to other reasons, not because of the bankers. Huh? You would not have seen so many infrastructure which has come up, mainly because the banks have actually gone ahead. And believe me, banks are not supposed to finance them. Believe me, I still reiterate, banks are not long-term financial institutions. Unfortunately, because we have given up the DFI concept some time ago due to various reasons, because they could not get adequate funding. And so bankers who normally have an average of 3 to 4 years of funding, average, I'm telling you, most of the funds are lower, and they do have a capital and corpus, which is there for perennial, which basically means average of 2 3 years. And they are funding projects for 10 and 15 years, which means they have mismatches, which means they have an issue of repricing the projects, and which also means that the projects become uncertain on the costing factor. This is one issue. We have also had the bankers subject to various regulators. You have the SEBI, you have the RBIs, and we have the owners also. We need to have total independence for them. They should have good quality on their boards, good quality staff, which is not difficult, but I think we need to remunerate them properly to do this. One more thing, the government, of course, because of other reason, and now recently due to COVID, they do not have adequate capital to finance the recap the bonds, banks, and there's been a tremendous clamor for recapitalization of the banks. It's perfectly valid, but if they're going to recapitalize, then they have to raise the funds. So they have been telling the public sector banks, please go to the market and raise funds. Believe me, tell me, and I'm sure all of you will agree, who will accept or who will take up the capital of the public sector banks where there is no prospect in the near future for any profits or dividends. So unless you make them viable, so no one is going to say, no, no, it's going to make losses. You're going to, you have already seen the fate of airline like Air India. So we have seen for the last 2 years, there's been a lot of bids. It is a fantastic brand. It has got a good reputation, etc. But then it's loss making. It's not becoming viable. Therefore, unless you make it viable, or at least that there's a cash flow which is neutral to the outflows, that is going to be very difficult to take. So we need to have professionalize the bankers to make it profitable, rather than say, no, no, go only for social. If it's going to do for social banking, very good, excellent. I think they have done a wonderful job. But then compensate them. Compensate them for the social banking concept so that it is commercially viable. They're called commercial banks, but not run on commercial lines. This is something which I would like to see. They are not startups where they can have a 78 years gestation period before they can turn around. They have been around for 50 years and 100 years. And even after 100 years, if you say, no, 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 they are still in the initial stages of the economy, I think we need to take care of that and see that they have become viable. If the banks are viable and profitable, they would do well. The banks were viable and profitable, but yes, we had some schemes which was essential from the point of view of the government to ensure that finance goes to the bigger section and small section. But having said that, I think they also should be reimbursed to some extent the cost, so that there's an incentive for them to do it rather than a danda. Danda works only for a limited period, not beyond a particular period. COVID times. This is the main scenario under COVID time. Cash flow has been given to some of the very, very weaker section for initial period. But believe me, today, in many projects and many companies, the salary is not being paid fully to most of the employees. Employees are getting a 25%, 30%, 40%, 50% haircut. Daily laborers and regular laborers who have been taken for 10 days and 15 days, they are not being paid for 3 days, 4 days as a haircut of 25, 30%, which basically means they have to work 140% to get back to the original thing, which means they have to either starve or do much more, and then it will tell on their health. And during these times of COVID, one is always scared. You are right saying that the COVID is not anything beyond that particular flu, but this is an uncertain flu. We don't know where it's going to come from, how it's going to come from. We don't know how to completely remove this. We have been lucky, I would say we are very, very lucky in India that, the percentage-wise, the number of cases which is there as compared to the population is much, much lower. And I think we have to thank God that things are under control. And hopefully, 21 we should be much better. But we need to see that the funds flow right into the lowest one from the top. So that's a general tendency is give the money in the hands of the poor and they will start spending. But I think we need to have the entire economy has to start functioning. So any dues which are there from any company, any government department or the government should to anyone else should be paid within the reasonable time. If it is supposed to be paid on X date, within 15 days, once the cash flow starts generating, now the question will happen: where will the government fund it? But believe me, unless you start this ball rolling, this cascading effect and the multiplier effect which will happen, that more and more people will start spending, more and more people start buying steel, they start buying cement, more houses, more housing loans, and then there'll be jobs. Today, banks are all there. All the banks are flush with funds. Too much of money coming there. All the middle class and upper class, they are not spending. No travel, no outing, no restaurant, nothing. So all the money saved. No dresses being purchased. Everything is being stopped. So everything is going to the banks, and the banks are all putting it to the RBI. RBI on its own has also made available a lot of funds. The, right in the beginning, I told merely funds available is not enough. It has to have opportunities. It has to have opportunities which is viable and also makes it attractive. So, and if someone says, no, I'll give you a 2%, doesn't mean abroad in Germany, interest rate is -1%. -1%. Doesn't mean people will go on. In fact, it basically means if you put a deposit of, say, $1 million, you'll probably get about $990,000 after 1 year. But people don't want to keep it at home cash, so they keep it in their banks. Here, a scenario is even if you offer at 1-2%, there may not be too many takers. Today, at least to my knowledge, it is one of the lowest interest rate regime we are running. But there's virtually no demand. Demand is not coming. So we need to encourage this. Who is to start it? This starts has to start from the government. Once the government starts, government has to start first, like I told you, all the trades, payment to trades. Payment to all projects where they have dues has to be made on time. Then in turn, the companies to whom they pay, they should also give an assurance that all the payment which they are due to their suppliers has to be made on time. And that they should also give a certificate that all the payments to the employees are on time. So if this cycle starts doing it, it's a question of couple of years of discipline. And I think once the cycle starts, everyone will be happy. मेरे पास पैसा आ गया तो मैं दे दूंगा, मुझे क्या problem है? So today what happens in the initial stages, there's a call saying, no, you should, despite that you are not working, you should ensure that the poor people, the employees do not suffer. Yes, for 15 days, 1 month. But beyond 1 month and 2 months, tell me which employer will be having so much of funds unless the meter starts ticking where he starts earning. So you need to create that atmosphere. International banks and international institutions. In India, we have got commercial banks. We have got the LIC, which is the MyBap of all the funds in India. I think they have got one of the largest corporates and probably have a foot in almost in every company which is listed in India. They have a stake, mainly because they felt that they sort of diversify the portfolio. Fantastic. Then we have got the 4 insurance companies. 3 of them are shaking, but all 4 of them are strong ones. Then we have got the new insurance companies. The new insurance companies are still in the nascent stage. They've been only for around 10 to 15 years. The corpus is not so big for them to take up large projects. They do take up some bonds. They do take up, so they do participate, but not in a big way of putting 1,000 crores or 2,000 crores or 3,000 crores on a single project. Each of them can probably do 50 crores, 100 crores, or 200 crores. But yes, small drops make an ocean. So they will be there. We don't have a pension fund of that kind. So most of the pension fund is a government type of pension fund, which basically means the government is taking it from the budget. So we have started this pension fund for the last 8 to 10 years. It is coming up, but then there are restrictions by the PFRDA that it has to be on AAA and AA, which basically means anything which is slightly higher risk will not be touched by them. Therefore, we also have put some constraints on this. So we need to understand that returns are going to be higher with a little bit of risk, maybe of some percentage. They have started a good job. We do have some institutions like Exim Bank, but I think they are very, very small. Abroad, we have got some fantastic institutions who have a lot of stake in India. The Japanese have got a lot of stake because they are selling a lot of Japanese vehicles, Japanese equipment, Japanese machinery, Japanese machinery. So they are ready to give at very, very low percent. Japan has been having low interest rates for almost 3 decades, to my understanding. And even today, they will readily give it at 0.5% or 1%, of course, with exchanges. But if you are in a position to do a swap and then you do it, I think it's a fantastic arrangement you can have. You've got other agents like KFW, JICA. Then internationally, there are some very good pension firms, pension companies. And these people are not looking for fantastic returns. They're not looking for 20%. They're not like a private equity people. They are looking for decent returns of 78% only. But they don't want, volatility, and they don't want, they don't mind taking in exchanges because they find that even if the exchange risk about 3 to 4% per annum, if you're getting 78%, that cost being around 1 to 2%, they'll still make about 4 to 5%, which is a fantastic thing. I think there are a good number of people who are ready to come in. We have already seen a lot of stress assets being purchased by international firms. We saw it in the case of a steel company. We got some NBFCs which are coming up. I think there is a huge potential for international players to come in, and they're all, believe me, world over. You go to any international institution, financial institution, there's always a group which is watching India. There are always a group which is watching India for various things. What is the political scenario? What is the legal scenario? What's the economic scenario? They're watching the central bank. They're watching the legal systems. They're watching the enforcement directorates and the actions of it, whether it is going to cause a discomfort. See, abroad, fraud is taken seriously and they are punished within 2 years and 3 years. Today in India, if you have something which is a fraud, it takes 15 years before the person is actually indicted, if at all he is. And then by which time the entire corpus is lost and gone. There it's very clear. He is indicted, he is penalized. We saw the case of the money laundering of SSBC, which I've heard. Once they found out, they just ask them to pay a few billions and then say, you rectify the system, within 6 months we'll come and check you and then go ahead. But that's not happening. We need to have the legal system which ensures that the processes are quick and people respond to this. And yeah, and a few things Mr. Akram was mentioning that there's a lot of scope for MSME. I think the MSME is a huge industry. I recall in the 70s and 80s, there's in Tamil Nadu, there's a place called Gindi Industrial Estate. Many of you know. It's one of the biggest industrial estates then. Today it's lost because the industry, some of them have already gone because they were having the old machinery and old technology. But new industries can come up and new areas can come up, and even in the old industries, you can sort of define them. You can improve the quality, reduce the cost, etc. These things can happen. MSMEs is like the best thing which can happen to India if it is supported. But support cannot come from the government directly. You can only provide certain facilities, certain amenities like roads, infrastructure. But it needs to have the support from the parent company, which is to whom they are suppliers, to whom they are ancillaries. They are going to supply to them. Those people should not take advantage of the smallness of these companies and squeeze them. And that is where, during this pandemic, they were already having some problems, but now it has sort of ballooned into a huge issue where they are unable to operate at more than 30-40% capacity. Wherever I go, they say, sir, we are much better than what you are in April, because much better is like, saying out of 10, we were at 8. Now we are from 1, we have gone up to 4. I think we have a long way to go. I think that is something which we need to do. Trades, I made a mention about trade. Trade is a trade-related risk exposure system where the person who is selling, he puts it on the system and the buyer acknowledges it. On the basis of the bank gives a very concessional rate, and on the due date the payment is made. Believe me, most of the large corporates and most of the public sector units and the government, they are on trade only for namesake. They are hardly doing 0.01% of the turnover. So the more and more you do it, and especially they should say anything any company with whom they are having a turnover up to 50 crores, they should ensure this payment is made through trains. This is sort of, it's like the old check system was very good. Then we have got online system, but still we are having the same problems. I think that is something. Payment systems is going to be revolutionized. Today, most of us don't use check at all. Most of us don't even go to the bank. In fact, I went to the bank today after almost about 7 or 8 months. We don't need a bank because, like someone said, you have a bank on your mobile phone or bank on your laptop. I think that is good. Mr. Akram mentioned about last year industries. I would like to ask him how many new industries have come up in the last 5, 6 years? Hardly any. Because there's been general discomfort both from the industrialists, say, sure, how do I finance? There's been a discomfort that, in case something goes wrong, then better I be hauled up for doing something wrong by mistake or will be hauled up for any malified intentions. Bankers are having so much of funds, they are ready to put it into good quality. But how do I define good quality? That is something which we need here. Yeah, and come to the lower strata of the facility. Today, I don't think the country has a better ecosystem for the lowest strata of the society to approach the banks. Thanks to Jan Dhan Yojana, almost everyone has got accounts. Thanks to this and housing loan and education loan, most of the people are in a position to get loans at a very reasonable rate, at pretty decent and very quickly. Otherwise, our entire industry would have been in trouble. Your auto industry is thriving more on the auto loans which are coming up. I think there's a lot of opportunities there. I think retail. In fact, I'm actually having a bit of discomfort. All the banks seem to have migrated lock, stock, and barrel to retail. If this happens, then first of all, they will not allocate funds for the large corporates. And if at all they allocate, they may not have the expertise because people have not been doing it. So we have a peculiar problem is demand is not there, supply of fund is there, demand is not there. And if demand comes, whether there will be able to adequately appraise the project, that also will be losing. Agriculture, I think I'm hopeful that the new farmer policy will be fantastic because this will lead a lot of international institutions to come and actually put finances because the ESG concept is something which they're all very, very much happy. And India is very good in agriculture. Unfortunately, the agriculture does not get paid well, mainly because he does not have the wherewithal to hold on to his stocks for a long time. He produces, he keeps it, and then he sells it off to the nearest person who comes and buys it. And due to various reasons of the way the agriculture system is operated, he probably ends up making a very marginal profit, which may just not be enough to have a sustainable living also. So again, it becomes a cycle where he starts borrowing again, and therefore he falls into a debt trap. So I think good warehouses, good marketing system. Technology has gone up a lot, but even in technology, I think we should give incentives for people who set up towers and telecom connectivity in the rural areas. Today, we all boast of a lot of telephones everywhere. Yes, telephones are everywhere. But I'm sure all of us, even now when we talk, we find that we have difficulty in talking because very often there's a drop in the calls. Thankfully, this particular Zoom call, I think it's going on very smoothly, but it's quite possible that that is there. So the telecom has to, and finally, warehousing facility. So opportunities galore. Supply also galore, but we need to take care of certain the issues which I highlighted. And once again, thanks, Dr. Shekhar. I don't know whether I have really touched the areas which I said. Last but not least, one small thing about the international investors is they are willing to take all kinds of risk. They are willing to take political risk to the extent. They are willing to take exchange risk. They are willing to take even risk investments. But they want certainty of cash flow and they don't want uncertainty on policies and matters. And that is something which we need to ensure. So with this, thank you, Dr. Shekhar, for giving me this opportunity. I have gone beyond the time.
Excellent. Every question has been answered, touched upon. And like you rightly said about telecom, our other speaker is stuck because he's not able to get connected. So he is now going to speak through WhatsApp only. Akram will connect him. This is called Murphy's philosophy. we're at at a wrong place. The right thing will not work.
Rajiv sir is connected through WhatsApp.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Rajiv, Mr. Kashikar?
I spoke a bit too soon, I think.
Yes.
No.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Let me only give just a 2-minute introduction. Rajiv Kashikar has been one of the doyen of the financial sector in India. He has made his dent by being an Indian ambassador to the world for the Indian financial system. He has done extremely good work in India. In London, he has been MD of even international, what they call as boutique financial institutions. And he is also a very good evangelist in the sense that he is teaching in all his spare time to management students. And he is also a member of the Bombay University Senate, which is highly creditable for a banker to be into various lines, especially in teaching, because teaching is not a line which any banker would generally like. And I'm sure, even though he's not going to be seen, we can see his picture here. He'll be talking through WhatsApp, thanks to the communication link. For some reason, this is the first time in our 44 shows which has just happened. Mr. Kashikar, please take the mic.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So I have only one question, Dr. Shekhar. You are going to focus on the economic side of the things. Hello? Hello?
Sir, can you, your voice is there, but should I dial you from normal number? You can speak from there. I think WhatsApp voice quality is a little low. So I'm just dialing from normal call. Yeah. So I'm dialing a normal call. Maybe. Yeah. Sir, can you hear me? Rajiv sir?
Hello?
Yes, Rajiv sir. You can speak now.
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Shekhar sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yeah, please go on.
So, thank you very much and good afternoon to all of you. Thanks, Dr. Shekhar, for providing me a platform. And I heard out the Honorable Managing Director of SBI. So he touched upon a lot of issues, which included even one very interesting concept of social banking. And actually, social banking has to be now probably extended to various people, really, because we are going through a financial crisis, really, in India. Having said that, like he touched upon a very good point, actually, 2 points, which I would like to actually have a word about that. He was talking about project overruns and cost overruns because of time overruns and and a lot of inbuilt costs which are not really part of the value adding to the project. The inefficiency which gets built into the system and it is passed on to the consumer.
Sir, can you hear?
Prosperity by enhancing the maritime trade and building export capabilities. So we have known that already. I don't want to really have a cliched conversation on China and Taiwan and all these countries, how they build their prosperity on the basis of exports. But I would say that we are at the moment our policies are not coordinated, and we need to have proper coordination amongst all the players in the financial system. So, Honorable Managing Director spoke about example of Life Insurance Corporation. He also spoke about how the other players are margin list. Then we need to look at the how we can bring competitiveness amongst our various financial system. Besides that, we don't seem to having a proper coordination. Each one, any institution wants to kind of make a strategy or make a statement or announce a policy. They necessarily do not know what is happening in the other institutions. So that policy response is not well coordinated, is what I feel. And there is a kind of a communication gap between the private sector and government perhaps, or even the public sector and the government. There is some sort of a communication gap. And many things we are learning only out of newspapers and media channels. We are not really getting to know. There should be slightly more coordination and transparency in the overall scenario thing. Even Reserve Bank of India, it is things that generally we know their stance, whether they're dovish, they're going to have a dovish stance, or they're going to go with more stuff. Communication, and people generally should know, and the bankers and the financial system players can make their policies, I would say better policies or more tailor-made or customized policies based on better communication. That's what I feel. As far as the corporate sector is concerned, India's corporate sector, private sector, I mean. Again, I think everybody is waiting for easing of the system and removing the bottlenecks in terms of a lot of rules and procedures that are actually holding us back. And again, Honorable Managing Director said about GST is a great system. We all know that. But the implementation, or he said very correctly that about 1 or 2 crore turnover companies with 1 or 2 crore turnover are finding it very difficult and time consuming because their margins are not really big, and a lot of time is spent on compliance, and the compliance and regulatory costs like appointing CA and then filing forms, etc., and the time taken to fulfill those regulations and compliances may not be really worth it. So maybe some drastic measures will have to be taken to do away with. Maybe the limit will have to be increased because maybe the limit it can go up to 5 crore. Currently the limits are too small for zero GST. That needs to go to, I don't know the number, but it definitely needs to go up so that a lot of people will be free, particularly the ancillary industry and the vendors to bigger companies can provide and can concentrate on producing production and manufacturing and bringing in good quality systems and supply chains so that the entire operating cycle comes down and we become more efficient. If the operating cycle comes down, efficiency will increase and obviously the cost will decline per unit of measure. Whatever is measured, the expenses will. We are focusing on too many areas, and we need to perhaps focus on 2 or 3 or 5 areas where India can be really number one, and we can be actually, and we have to just take these 4 or 5 areas and build our policies around them. of the example of governments. India was a leader about 15, 20 years ago. That we were leaders.
Yeah. Can you hear, sir? Rajiv, sir? Okay. So there's a little disturbance in the line. So you're not able to hear Rajiv, sir. So you are in mute, Dr. Shekhar.
So it is anyway 3 o'clock, and fortunately, Mr. Kannan himself touched upon various topics, including the global financing, global expectations of the market. It was very nice that, even though being in State Bank, he knew the mindset of a typical investor from abroad and how they look at India and what they are looking at, what we can do, and how various aspects. It is no use just finding fault with any one person. It is the question of like what he rightly said about legal system, which has nothing to do. Nobody will expect a banker to talk about legal system. Means, if I'm good, let me be awarded. If I'm not good, let it be punished. That is something which should go deep into the this thing. Another thing is, bankers are flush with money. What the good thing which is bringing to the system is bankers are having money. Please come forward. Please come forward with a good project. Please come forward with a project which is viable, which conforms to the rules of the game. It is no use coming and saying there are many people who come and say, oh, I discovered something new, the banker should fund me. No banker will fund you. Okay. He needs your market, he needs your collaterals in place, but that is his rule book. So that everybody who is looking for it should know. And because of COVID, there are so many opportunities are coming, as much as so many opportunities are lost. So in the new dimension, take the new opportunities which are viable today, not it was viable before the COVID. And there are few which are like today, somebody comes and says, I want to expect a tourism. He also mentioned tourism. Tourism is a very, very big industry. It wants to grow. But today, nobody will fund a tourism industry or transport industry. Whereas anything in agriculture, anything in medicine, anything in education, anything in so many small related fields, yes, they will all be taken care, they'll be funded. So thanks to Mr. Kannan for his excellent talk. And unfortunately, we'll be missing Rajiv's talk, which was to come more on the international front. But since the time is also up, we are not able to connect him. I will thank him and thank Mr. Kannan profusely for taking more time and then explaining from various angles. So thank you so much, and we will. Unless you got something more to say, Mr. Kannan.
I apologize for having actually interviewed. I didn't even realize it. That only when I saw the watch, it was almost 40, 45 minutes past 2.
No, it was very good. because you talked 15 minutes on global business anyway.
So that's one. And
for the
second thing, your own area, which, I always associate you with smart cities. And, the way you actually, we had a fantastic discussion for more than an hour in my office. I think today is the best time for the government to actually implement smart cities.
It's very true. People are
the traffic is less, the roads are relatively empty. So finish it or go super fast pace and finish it up. I do see in Pune for the last 3 months, the work for the metro is going at super fast pace.
Very true.
I think we need to make the best of the time. Ensure that infrastructure facilities, etc. We saw a lot of hospitals which have come up within 48 hours and 72 hours. I think if we have the will, we can certainly do it. Thank you again, Dr. Shekhar, for a wonderful opportunity given to me. Thank you. And
Thank you so much.
Once again, for having entered into the and thanks, Mr. Akram, also.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really wonderful to have you. So we had Rajiv sir slightly, like partially in the program, but we'll have him in future again. And we'll be very happy to have you in future, sir, for many similar discussions. So viewer, with permission from Dr. Shekhar, so we can close the session. So viewers, keep watching the Policy Times. We'll be back with different experts on different topics.
Thank you.
Thank you.